Peru. Its tale has been told and retold by scores of explorers and adventurers, yet the country remains shrouded in mystery. For mere words cannot capture all the magic working here. The pre-Hispanic civilizations have vanished, taking with them many of their secrets. The whispering of the last Incas harks back to that bygone era. Modern-day Peru is heir to the human ingenuity that was so closely in touch with the upheavals of the earth. The story of Latin America is also that of the Quechua language. Before the arrival of the Spanish and their all-powerful alphabet, culture here was an unwritten, oral tale. Jaime Araoz Chacon is one of those voices that is keeping alive the old world of the Andes, steeped in spirituality. Today, Jaime is on his way to Misminay, a little village 50 kilometers from Cusco. Jaime is a mediator for the Andean communities and has spent an entire year listening to the inhabitants. Access to clean water, discrimination, rural exodus. They've had more than their share of problems. But thanks to Jaime, the village is coming back to life. The farms are once again up and running using the ancestral methods. Jaime always encourages the villagers to conserve their traditional know-how.
My job is to support and accompany the indigenous communities and farmers, to listen, to analyze, and to act as an intermediary, a spokesman to give a voice to these communities. This is one of my roles.
Drinking water is freely available, but they don't have running water in their houses yet. So mornings in Misminay are marked by the constant comings and goings around the fountain. For more than 20 years, Jaime has been penning a detailed inventory of all the living cultural treasures specific to each Andean village.
The traditional Andean weaves represent our way of life. They're a testimony, our original writing. They tell our story right up to the present day. All the people of the Andes have suffered discrimination on account of the clothing, the color of skin, because of illiteracy. So we have suffered for all these reasons, and it's still going on. It's not something in the past. No. To avoid this discrimination, we've abandoned our own clothing and adopted other styles. But doing that is even worse. We disappear. We end up being nothing.
We have chicken, wings, breasts, drumsticks, carcasses, necks. We have it all, dear customers.
Pound of each.
Here you are, my little lady.
How's business?
So-so.
Perfecto.
Uno. A ver, caserita, tenemos fruta para sus niños, verdura para que cocinen, pollo, pescado, casera, granaría, granada, sandía, tomate, zapallo, cebolla, zanahoria casera tenemos, pollo, ala, pecho, espinazo, cogote y cazuela tenemos, carísimo.
Tengo que ir a cada comunidad.
I have to visit all the communities that need me. I get around by car, on foot, on horseback, by motorcycle, if one's available. Whatever comes along. Buses like this one are my home away from home.
Caserita. Toma, caserita.
Más caja, ¿cuántos hay?
4.30.
Necesitamos enseñar al mundo.
We need to share our teachings with the world. We have to communicate with Mother Nature, to renew our contact with her, and look at nature differently, not as just a resource to destroy, but as a large house where we can live well.
The mountains of Peru are full of treasures. For thousands of years, the locals in Majas have been working the salt pans carved out by their ancestors.
The salt that we're harvesting here is the purest. We use it for human consumption. It's called fleur de sel. Then we have another darker layer of salt that we scrape up last. We use it for fertilizer, for the plants, and also as medicine. It has good medicinal qualities.
The 520 families of the community work together as a cooperative. They share the land and the work, respecting the Quechua system of mutual aid called Aini, strength in solidarity. Jaime is a politically committed artist. He was first a school teacher before becoming professor of art. He paints to share his knowledge, a true craftsman of the collective memory. His works are not for sale, they're intended for those who can't read. He makes ritual agricultural calendars, veritable encyclopedias specific to each village. It takes between 1 and 2 years of observation and meticulous work to produce one of these paintings. Jaime has done more than 20.
En cada pueblo los tiempos cambian.
Each village has its own notion of time. Each community has its cycles and way of living, their way of making clothes, of building their houses, their own customs and traditions. So each village has its own calendar. It gives an overall view of our cosmovision, Andean, Quechua, Aymara, and Amazonian. The Andean Cosmovision is a way of interpreting our world and our culture. To get a clear picture of our Cosmovision, think of a well. When you drop a pebble in, it makes waves that always go from the center outward. Once they reach the wall, the waves come back. We do the same thing when we deepen our knowledge. Once we reach a certain advanced level of understanding, we must return to the essentials, the basics, to be able to pass this knowledge on. Otherwise, we would never be able to teach.
The site of Moray symbolizes the Andean Cosmovision. This was a research laboratory where the Incas created new species that could resist the cold and the altitude. They were able to recreate different microclimates thanks to this configuration of concentric terraces.
If we were to use this site as it were used back then we'd produce better seeds for the whole world. We could once again start to learn from this site. It's as if we were in the womb here. It's returning to our mother's belly and being reborn.
Jaime is setting out for an encounter with a remote community, the Queros. Their village of Quicos, 4,200 meters up, has just recently been made accessible with a dirt road. Before, they were isolated from the rest of the world. The Queros are considered the last representatives of the Inca civilization.
What's his name?
Mestiza.
That's a fine alpaca. How often do you vaccinate them?
Every 6 months.
We must not count the animals because it's a secret. If we count them, they'll stop reproducing. So we mustn't count them if we want to have a lot of them. We just say we have a herd of animals, but we don't know how many.
In the course of a year, Jaime will spend 1 week every month in this village. He will eat and sleep with each of the families. He will listen to what they have to say, but he will also warn them of certain dangers. Mining prospection, evangelistic missions, the shrinking of the glaciers. There's no shortage of worries.
So, my brother, tell me about your life. We will speak and open our hearts to one another.
There are new things that have come to our village. The road, lighting, electricity, they have opened our eyes. Things are better than before. Now we want to stay here. Those who leave, they leave to find work.
Vaqueros want to show Jaime a very important site, a sacred cave known to only those initiated. They're going to perform a ceremony there to help Jaime in his work.
Approach, spirits. Come take care of our little brother, that he always be welcome everywhere, even in the big city. That he be blessed with gold and silver. In the name of all the spirits.
They are the guardians of the teachings and acknowledged as the heirs of the last Inca communities, that age-old culture. They have the power to communicate with the mountains at all times. It's a fundamental way of life, an ongoing conversation with Mother Earth, with the apus, the mountain gods, and other guardian spirits. The dialogue with them is absolutely essential, crucial. If we don't express our spirituality, we cease to be ourselves. We lose our culture, which gives birth to our music, our clothes, seeds. It gives us everything we share, what we experience day after day.
On our land, the land of the Keros, we don't use any chemical substances. Our potatoes and other produce are natural. This is why we perform ceremonies with offerings to the earth. It's to thank her. We perform them as they were done in the time of the Incas. We treat the earth with respect, and we do it in secret. We don't reveal everything to the public, to the city dwellers.
Dominga is the chosen one of the spirits. She has a special role in the community. It's her duty to summon the apus, the mountain gods.
It's our Pachamama who gives us such beautiful potatoes. If she were not willing, we wouldn't harvest anything.
The danger for all communities with a cultural heritage is alienation, acculturation, assimilation into the dominant culture. It's a danger for all of us. What we possess is unique. If we lose it, it would be impossible to get it back, or in any case, very difficult. We could always do it as a hobby, a bit of folklore for special occasions. But to live it would be nearly impossible. It's a challenge.
To speak to the mountains and listen to the earth. In Peru, the ground trembles and the mountains rumble, in tune with the Pacific Ring of Fire. In his own way, José del Carpio also has the power to interpret the seismic music of the Earth. The Pinchoyo geyser, over 4,300 meters up, spits jets of steam heated in the bowels of the Earth to over 85 degrees Celsius.
Es verdad de que el planeta está vivo.
Our planet is very much alive.
Vamos a hacer unas lecturas.
We take measurements,
y ver cuánto de
we take its
temperatura tiene la
temperature to
Tierra.
see if it's sick or healthy.
Si es que está enferma o está
In fact,
sana. Pero en
the
realidad,
activity generated
la
in this
actividad que
zone
se genera
is
en
caused
esta
either
zona
by the volcanoes or
puede
by
ser
the
por
Earth's
causas
internal
volcánicas,
dynamics.
Estamos frente a un volcán y también por la dinámica interior que tiene la Tierra. Cuando veo este tipo de
When I see this type of phenomenon, like this geyser here, I think of it as a window to the inside of the Earth. And I'd like to go through it to see what's there deeper down. It's moving, and it fascinates me as a scientist. And that's why I love my job.
José is a volcanologist at the IGP, the Institute of Geophysics of Peru. He's in charge of monitoring the seismic and volcanic activity in the southern part of the country. The region of Arequipa is home to all of Peru's active volcanoes. José, assisted by Omar, is going to monitor the Sabancaya volcano. Its name means tongue of fire.
La sismología, en otras palabras, lo que hace
This seismological device here records the pulse of the Earth.
es registrar los latidos de la Tierra. A manera de un
It's like a doctor's stethoscope.
cuando tú vas
when
al
he checks
doctor,
your heartbeat.
empiezas a ver tu corazón.
This instrument
De
works
la
the
misma
same
forma
way,
funciona este equipo, pero
but
con
for
la
the
Tierra.
Earth.
No hay
It's the
otro
best
método que
method
lo
we've come
supere
up
hasta
with
la
so
fecha.
far, and at
Y
the
el
observatory,
observatorio
we're
nos ha dado
collecting a
muchos
lot of data.
The device is buried. A solar panel supplies it with energy. José will come back in 2 months to collect the precious data. The Colca Canyon is the second deepest in the world, 3,200 meters from cliff edge to river, twice the depth of the Grand Canyon. The considerable seismic activity has given birth to a huge fault, 100 kilometers long, inexorably carved out by the river. This geologist's paradise has also attracted condors. There are more than 40 nesting here. Their 3.5-meter wingspan allows them to soar effortlessly.
The real Aymara name of this site is Charlia. That means it's a sacred site where we worship a divinity. The condor was very important for the people here, and still is, even today, because it represents the world above, or the soul of a person after death. And where do souls live in the Andean beliefs? In the mountains. And where do condors live?
In the mountains.
The condors were here before the Incas.
In Peru, the sight of nature driven by mysterious forces has always fascinated people. It fires the imagination and rekindles their beliefs.
The Incas always considered mountains and volcanoes as sacred sites. During our expeditions, we've come upon mummies in fetal position at the bottom of ravines and inside craters, because they believed that volcanoes, as well as mountains, were the bowels of the earth. Placing their dead in these sacred sites was their way of sending them off to another life.
Regresarlos a otra vida.
Tutupaca, Yucamane, Misti, Tixani, Pichu Pichu, Chachani, Ubinas, Hainaputina. This is not an incantation, but the melodious names of the volcanoes, all very much alive. Their breath tints the sky. Their rumblings make the altiplano tremble. They all inspire the fear of a massive explosion. A few, like Ubinas, are monitored very closely. In 2006, the population living on its slopes went through living hell. A huge cloud of hot ash engulfed the village of Querapi.
Querapi is 4 kilometers from the crater, and the quantity of ash that rained down on the village was very harmful for the villagers. In 2006, it was a scene of total confusion. No one was prepared for a volcanic eruption, so eventually the authorities evacuated the village.
The village of Ubinas, a mere 2 kilometers from Querapi, suffered similar torments, but is still inhabited. In the background, the summit of the volcano veiling the horizon remains an ominous threat to the villagers. Jose visits once a month to discuss the risks of an eruption with the local authorities.
Claudio. Hola. ¿Cómo estás?
Ubinas is in the orange alert zone on this risk chart. We're going to downgrade it to yellow alert. It will put the villagers more at ease, right?
Yes. The people here are well aware of the danger. They respect your recommendations.
Jose can always count on Melquiades, one of the villagers, to lend a helping hand. He's been climbing the volcano since he was 7.
I'm always curious to climb up Ubinas and see what's down in the bottom of the crater. I've always liked that. I go up there a few times a week. I've gone up 3 or 4 times this month, all on my own. Nobody asked me to do it, but I wanted to see the crater lake. I'd never seen it. It's beautiful. It's one more experience, and I'll never forget it.
What day did you go up? When did you see the lake?
April 3rd.
Nos encontramos en el mismo cráter del volcán Ubinas. Observamos en el fondo del cráter del volcán Ubinas una laguna natural. Ahí observamos.
The most amazing thing about these expeditions up the volcanoes is working at high altitudes. The volcanoes we monitor here in Peru are around 6,000 meters above sea level. It's exhausting, but it lifts our spirits to know that we're working for the common good.
Climbing Ubinas is a breathtaking adventure in every sense of the word. At more than 5,600 meters, the air is very thin. Today, the volcano seems to be dozing peacefully in its bed of snow, a deceptive calm, for this crew has first-hand knowledge of the volcano's other facet. On August 6, 2015, they had front-row seats when the volcano offered them a stunning spectacle.
Nos encontramos en el mismo cráter del volcán Ubinas. Observamos los impactos. Está muy caliente. La zona de bombas inmensa.
Corre de frente al hueco y calculas su largo y su ancho con pasos. Calcula su largo y su ancho con pasos. Y ahí puede tomar foto porque ya no hay viento. Tome foto de una vez.
Copiado, doctor, copiado. Ya hemos tomado fotos y filmado. Un cráter de 23 por 15.
Once we were working in the volcano, and they warned us on the radio that the activity had jumped, and we were right there in the caldera.
Apúrense, tomen foto, varias filmen y vénganse, regresen, ya no se queden mucho. Y no se, por favor, no se queden mucho, regresen.
We were pretty quick to react. They told us to evacuate, and when we were halfway out of the volcano, there was an explosion.
Son las 8:48 minutos. Nuevamente hubo una gran explosión en el volcán Ubinas, así como estamos viendo en estas imágenes. Esta es la explosión. Saca foto.
It was incredible. We realized that the work we were doing in the observatory was beginning to produce results. So the risk that we, a handful of scientists, are taking help us on other volcanoes like El Misti, which has a huge population nearby.
El Misti means the gentleman. 1 million people live at its foot. It awoke in January 2016, emitting very noxious gases, a huge risk for the population of Arequipa, which is growing constantly and keeps settling closer to the Colossus. In a long-past geological era, an unimaginably powerful eruption provoked a huge wave of molten ash, a flow 18 kilometers long that is now quarried for stone. This soft stone was used in the construction of Arequipa and gave it its nickname, the White City.
Nature gives us these incredible volcanic explosions, but at the same time, she leaves behind the material we need to rebuild. Over the decades, with all the seismic activity that has occurred in Arequipa, the cathedral was destroyed and rebuilt countless times. These are the two things that life offers. It gives, and then it takes away. And that's the essence of our existence.
In Peru, nature is intimidating, but doesn't frighten the more adventurous. In this country, there are some men who dare take on the harsh elements. Growing up in the Andes gives one a vertical vision of the world.
Ya, lo tengo. Lo tengo.
I've always liked challenges. It's guided my life. It's what makes me an adventurer. I love engineering. I love technology. Being in a place that's hard to get to, where you won't find many people. There are so many things that inspire me every day. Everyday life inspires me.
Welcome to the everyday world of Ario Ferri, a man held aloft by his soaring imagination.
This is the entrance, a transparent cupola to get the view of the Ollantaytambo Valley. Here, you have the wooden floor. This capsule will be the dining room. The elliptical part here will be transparent, again for the view on the valley. And from here to here, in the back, you'll have the raw rock. This will be fastened to the cliff face. Here you'll have grottos, plants, hanging orchids. When it rains, the water will run off underneath. And the other door leads to the bathroom, which will also have a transparent floor.
Artist, craftsman, and self-taught architect, Ario has never abandoned his childhood dreams of fortresses and tree houses.
Bring the door over, we'll see if it fits.
Inspired by tales of adventure and space exploration, fascinated by his nights spent hanging from a cliff, Ario brought all his passions together to invent a system of inhabitable pods, futuristic shelters clinging to the mountainside.
Firma. Ya, sí es, esta es. Perfecto.
It's on a lush green slope of the sacred valley of the Incas that Ario decided to hang his dream. A dream built on an unavoidable fact of life. Absolutely everything has to be backpacked up to the site. No roads, no trails to reach the pods nearly 400 meters up. A folly earned by sweat and toil. It's a pharaonic project, which began with installing the Via Ferrata. 900 metal bars fixed to the cliff face to facilitate the ascent. It takes an hour and a half to reach the site. Ario can always count on his good friend Americo, a mountain guide like himself.
The story of this Via Ferrata began when I first came to the valley. I was staggered by the beauty of the mountains here. There wasn't many mountain activities, and it seemed to me that the time was ripe to launch an original venture. I wanted to spend as much time as possible in the mountains. But with trips of several days, I was away from my family for too long.
To share his passion for the void with as many people as possible, Ario forged forward and created the Skylodge, which has been open for business since July 2013.
The
Skylodge is a guest house. You could also call it a refuge, a sleeping capsule, or a base camp. I call it a vertical living pod. This one sleeps 4 persons. They can spend the night suspended in the air with an incredible view on the sacred valley and feel what it's like to sleep on a cliff face and almost what it's like to be a condor.
2 of the 3 pods are for the brave guests. The third one is for the logistics, a sort of base camp when working on the site.
Una sopita caliente, qué rico.
Now they're ready to add a 4th capsule. That will be the dining room.
Please bless what we are making. My brother and I offer it to you with our hearts. Watch over us.
Gracias, Cuno. Le pedimos permiso para hacer un hueco.
We kindly ask your permission to drill a hole.
You have it?
I've got a good hold. Brace yourself.
I'm set.
Vamos. Dale.
It took Ario 6 months of research to find the right cliff for his project. For in the sacred valley of the Incas, every slope, every summit, every crest harbors relics that are now protected.
The Incas were great mountaineers. It was hard to find a cliff face without any ruins. I think they must have even come through here. The Incas are a constant source of inspiration, with their irrigation channels, the suspended ruins, all without any technology, just their intelligence and the relationship with the Apus, the sacred gods. I still think we have that in common, even today.
The Incas were master builders who overcame all the obstacles to living in the high mountains to better rule over the plains. The ruins in Peru have hardly been touched by the ravages of time. They are a testimony to the ingenuity of those visionary architects who, like Ario, challenged the limits of the possible and erected unthinkable structures in the most improbable places.
I think my passion for construction began with my first Lego set. That, plus I was living in a place where the only way to have anything was to make it yourself. We didn't have any money to buy things, and everything had to be brought in from far away. There weren't even any stores. So I've been doing this all my life. I've always built what I needed as I went along. It took me several years to construct the Skylodge. First, we had to find the materials, which didn't exist in Peru at the time. Then there was the design and the engineering, and at the same time the location spotting, testing the sites to see how the rock fractures. Then moving on to construction, finding the right people, soldering the aluminum. It was a whole process that evolved as it went along. The total time I've spent suspended on the cliff face is close to a year, with days of 12 to 14 hours.
Gracias, papicha. Yo creo que la pared y nosotros ya.
My relationship with the cliff face is very
larga.
Intense.
Larga.
Now, we're coming into the home stretch. We're installing the safety cables to sleep safe and snug. Americo, how do you feel?
I feel just fine inside. How about you?
I'm over the moon. Just another day at the office.
When he's not hanging out at his office, Ario can enjoy his other passion on the Urubamba River a few hundred meters lower down. His coat of arms, the piole, and the paddle. Driven by his lust for life and fueled by adrenaline, he still has the taste for risk and exploration acquired in his childhood when he capered about the peaks of the Cordillera Blanca. A jack of all trades, he used to be a whitewater guide and spent 15 years running rivers the world over. Then he came back to drop anchor in Peru.
Speaking of rivers, I'm like a fish in water. When I used to work on the river, I couldn't even last a single day out of water because I felt as if I were drying out. I was anxious. Something was missing. I had a kind of craving, and it was a craving for water. It's thanks to the kayak that I am the person I am today. The kayak formed me as it forms a wake in the water.
It's a birthday party here on the banks of Lake Purai. Ario is 36 years old. He's a father of 3 children, and he's celebrating several full lives already. In Peru, they celebrate special occasions around a pachamanca, meaning earth pot. They heat stones for 5 hours, then the food is cooked in direct contact with the elements.
I no longer feel I have to prove anything to anyone, not even to myself. I prefer to have some fun with my children than go off and do something really extreme. I think that's part of the physical and psychological changes a man undergoes when he becomes a father. This lake is a special place where I come to spend time with my family. It's an important place for me that largely inspired my next project. But I decided to install it up on Lake Titicaca because there's so much more space. We have room to move around. We can get a good distance away from the shore. There's an unobstructed view. It's a greater challenge up there.
Ario, always bubbling over with ideas, is fine-tuning his next creation, the Skylodge, a floating transparent capsule like a half bubble meant to drift following his whims on Peru's largest lake. Another childhood dream that he will soon share with others. Meanwhile, he has to take care of his other children. The sleeping pods, exposed to the elements at an altitude of more than 3,000 meters, need a lot of maintenance. There's no end of work.
I don't think I'm crazy. What's crazy is wasting your life staring at a computer 8 hours a day. For me, this is just fantastic. This is real living. Nature. This is what keeps us alive, what gives us energy and the will to go on.